So, Mo, the first question I would like to ask you, and again, given your experiences in what you've done in your company, marketing and research, and also your role as an ASEAN Back Council member, how do you think ASEAN can ensure that the talent development efforts are aligned with the emerging trends and technology as well as demand of businesses? Would like to get your thoughts.
Thank you very much. Again, I'll take the opportunity to thank the organizers for giving us a chance to present this case. Actually, the ASEAN Business Advisory Council has initiated a new program. We've just finished a study sponsored by the Japanese on the issue of migrant workers. So when you say talent or hub, yeah, you have to understand that what the migrant workers provide to ASEAN countries is immense. Let me give you an example of the Philippines. So the Philippines GDP is about $370 billion. Yeah? So they record, and they have about 7 to 8 million workers, so they record that every year these migrant workers return a figure of $35 billion. And there's some speculations that it could actually be $70 billion. So you think, oh, $70 billion and 360 million, that's 20% of the GDP. But no, you've got to remember that $35 billion, that's official, is cash, is equivalent to at least $100 million in exports. So when you show those figures that were a net balance in trade of about 100 billion, it's nothing compared to the money that has been brought in with the migrant workers from the Philippines, Indonesia, Myanmar, Thailand, Vietnam, and so on and so. So when you discuss talent, how can we develop it? Are we not already appreciating the talent of mothers, sisters, brothers, going away to another country, slaving away to find money? How do you foster that talent? For most of the cases, when migrant workers come back, are they afforded the rights that the people do, the taxpayer does? And I keep on saying, please, guys, remember, it's cash, right? That cash is put in the bank, yeah? That makes more money for industries to develop. So one of the contexts that you said is, how can we develop our talent? Is we should be looking after them. We never, ever discuss the issue of our migrant workers in any government forum. We have never had a dashboard that says, well, hold on, are we being nice to them? I tell you why. We're a little bit embarrassed that we have migrant workers. So that is a major issue that and we're starting at the ASEAN Business Advisory Council. We want to put across, hold on, this is the biggest contributor, the migrant workers, to ASEAN. We need to accept the fact that they need to be looked after and developed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a very important point in terms of how do you make it also inclusive, right? And how do you, especially in this case, help take care and protect, the migrant workers that really contribute to the overall GDP. So my next question is actually to Jeff. So again, I think one of the thing that we saw is the importance of also developing digital talent. And Jeff, given your experience in investing in some of these digital ventures, what are the current challenges and opportunities in developing a skilled worker in ASEAN, especially on the digital talent?
Yes, thank you, Shirley. So maybe I'll start with one statement that actually has been haunting me in the past few months. I attended a conference, listened to podcasts, and there's one statement that really stuck with me. As we know now, a lot of people are talking about AI, ChatGPT. So this statement is really bothering me because the statement is a country that leads the AI race in the next decades will actually lead the world in the next century. So a lot of people are saying that AI, right? And then this era of, all this ChatGPT is going to revolutionize a lot of industries. Last week, I just spoke to US founders, and he's talking about how to create, so this company is in more infrastructure kind of technology, and his company is thinking on how to help all of these AI companies to process things faster. For example, if you look into your Spotify or Apple Music, you will get the daily mix and recommendations. The current computing capability is not quick enough to actually give everyone a customized daily mix recommendation. That is what the people or the startups or the founders in the US or maybe at the cutting edge, at the forefront of this innovation are thinking. And of course, I look at now, we are talking about the talent in ASEAN, in Indonesia. And backing many early stage founders and startups, we have invested in about 80 companies so far. We know what are the problems that we are facing and the solutions that these founders are working on. And it's nowhere near what those founders are doing. So I'm quite stressful for a while, saying that, okay, if that statement is true, a country that leads the AI race in the next decade will rule the world or will lead the world in the next century. How are we going to cope with that, right? Yeah. But now I started to have a different realization. Long story short is I believe that the talent will follow the industry. And how about the industry in Indonesia? Will we be at the forefront of the AI revolution? Maybe not. Do we need to be? Maybe not. Because why? Because we believe every country have our own playbook. Indonesia, we have a lot of natural resources. One of the things that actually pretty interesting is that the carbon credit market, we are actually leading in the world. We have a lot of potential in carbon credit. We have a lot of potential in demographic, in consumer because of the bonus demographic. Those are things that we believe we need to focus on. And the talent that we have to serve those industries is enough. We have many successful companies that we invested, and the talents locally, the available talents locally actually is enough to support the growth. So one way to think about the talent is, what are the industries that can grow in the next 5, 10, 20 years? Do we have enough talents? Yes, and we really believe that the talent will follow the money. The talent will follow the industries. And while we are maybe still behind for now for some of this cutting edge technology or innovation, but we have our own strengths and we have a lot of promising industries that will further push the growth of the economy.
Thank you, Jeff. I think it's very well said. So, different country have different playbook and you need to concentrate on your strength and, you don't always have to be the lead there, but, really focus on what you have. So actually, I would like to ask Eddie. Eddie, you've led a very interesting business, which is really like a job seeker platform focusing on the informal workers, the lower, to middle income, workers. So how do you see this play, especially in terms of digital, talent and, this whole challenges in developing talent? Would love to hear your view.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Shirley. I think I would like to kind of echo what Jeffrey said a little bit. Because most importantly, when it comes to challenge, what we need to understand is what are the opportunities, right? Because there's this framework that I use. Opportunities is what we can achieve, and then there is the people side of it, which are the talent. What is bridging the gap is basically education. And all these three have to align. The problem right now is a lot of countries, or people in power, there is that misalignment in these three different aspects. Right? For example, Indonesia, we talk about it, right? What Joe was saying about AI and such, probably doesn't apply to us because a lot of times people think about the creation of the technology itself is what is, attractive, right? What is exciting, but what's really important is actually the adoption of the technology in Indonesia, right? So when I think about this space, you have the talent, where is the state of talent that we are in? What is the baseline, right? And I think that if you look at what the research done by the Asian Development Bank, it says that about only 14% of Indonesia's working adult felt that they have the basic digital skills required to be competitive. ASEAN as a whole, it's like 50%.
Yeah.
Right? So there's that problem that we need to kind of catch up to. But I think fundamentally it's how we deploy the technologies, and also government has to play an important role in pushing up for that. But before all these three things can align, we can. So talking about adoption itself, for example, if we talk about the low middle income segment, all the low skilled and semi-skilled workers, it's not about AI. What they could do is, for example, AI requires the training of the model, the data
Yes.
labeling aspect of it,
Yes.
right? That's where we can come in. But I feel that before we have clarity on which are the areas we can improve on, where the existing baseline of the talent that we have, before we have that clarity, we don't know what's the game plan,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there's that part. And of course, most importantly, is about attracting talent. If we don't fit the talent base together with the opportunities that exist, with the right education system, we won't be able to attract the talents that in return will actually elevate existing talents. That loop has to exist. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And I think their whole baselining and also the part of the digital literacy is very key to address as well. Yeah. So, Pa Ilham, you've done a lot of work definitely on ASEAN talent and also collaboration. How do you think the ASEAN country can collaborate with each other or with the other regions and international organizations to strengthen and improve its position as the talent hub? Would love to hear your view on this.
Okay, thank you very much, Shirley. First of all, I think at the moment, if you read the media, then more and more people are trying to compare ASEAN with, for instance, the EU. Yeah. And some very aggressive voices say that it is maybe a very ambitious goal to be, at some point, even more developed than the EU, but it's not impossible. But it's possible. It needs time, though. Yeah? And there needs to be many more things happening in ASEAN. And you mentioned ASEAN. I don't want to go into the individual countries because ASEAN is very diverse. We have countries that are at very different stages of development and also very different stages of political systems.
That's right.
And so but all have one goal in mind, and they want to basically go up call it the development ladder, right? So, so going from underdeveloped to in development to developed, or from emerging or into industrial countries.
Yes.
Right? So, and I think many countries in ASEAN want to escape the middle income trap.
Yes.
And I think we have seen examples how other countries do it. Not in ASEAN, or there's one country which is already out of the middle income trap. One is about to, but many in the Northeast Asia region have actually exactly done that. So I think that would be an example to look at. How have these countries done it actually? How have they developed over the last decades? And I think one is definitely they have strongly focused on the aspect of technology and innovation. Yeah. And some of that they did by themselves, but much of that in collaboration with other countries.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look at, the most recent example is China, I think, what everybody knows. Although at the moment China is not in a very good position, but I mean, in the last decades, it was a tremendous growth economically, but also in terms of the way value add was created in that economy, went very much into the industrial sector and also the service sector related to that. Innovation played a very big role. There are centers or tech hubs not only to be found in Silicon Valley, but definitely in countries, in cities like Shenzhen, right? And so the investment, and that is talking about human talents or talent pool or human resources, is very much going to that direction. If you look around the globe, how many millions and millions of Chinese go abroad, study those complicated disciplines, and they go back home and work in those industries, and they push the economy in that direction. I think ASEAN cannot evade that, right? We are maybe different because we have abundant natural resources, as was mentioned before. I personally believe it's not enough. It's a good starting point to focus on natural resources downstreaming, but it has to be downstream to the end, meaning not only to the battery, but also all the products that use batteries, right? That needs to be part of that so-called downstreaming effort. Only then ASEAN can do this, and collaborating with multinational corporations, with multinational institutions, global companies is, I think, it's paramount. You have to do this. We cannot reinvent the wheel. We have to go step by step, learning that. And then at some point in time, if we have the critical mass of people and experience, then we can do our own thing.
Yes.
That is, I think, very important for us in Asia and ASEAN. Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
If I can just chime
Sure.
in a little bit, I think it's going to be interesting to also look at this question from the trade and also the company and the sectors. So just one interesting thing that I think what we are seeing is we've been investing in the past 10 years. And when we talk about ASEAN, a lot of people say that ASEAN is a region, but it's a region with multiple different countries.
Yeah.
And in the earlier phase of our investments, a lot of the companies, wherever they started, the companies always focus on their own home market first. Even until now, we don't have that many regional companies, if you will. But in the future, we believe that it will happen. And how these companies can actually be more regional, there's two ways to do this. One is that a company from Indonesia going regional, from Thailand going regional, from Malaysia going regional. Or there's more partnerships, right? When a company from Philippines comes to Indonesia, then there's a collaboration, there's a partnership. We believe that in the future, there's enough collaboration between the companies in these regions that foster the collaboration not only on the corporate sides or industry side, but this also will allow talents also to move around in this region, right? So we haven't seen that much about that movement, but we believe that we should see more of that in the near future.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. How do we facilitate that collaboration even within ASEAN countries, and all the different things that we talk about, visas, making sure that they are easily can work here, but also what Pa Ilham mentioned about learning from other countries who has gone through the process, like South Korea, China. Like right now, the number of research papers that they are producing is just amazing. But if we look at them 20 years ago, I mean, they are not there yet. So I think learning and also getting their help as well would be great. Yeah, you want to add something, Pa Ilham?
Yeah, I mean, just as an example, I mean, Indonesia is, I think, if I may talk about Indonesia a little bit, because we were talking about ASEAN before, right? So this is an enormous market, say, in the motorcycle space. We have the third largest market in the world after China and India for motorcycles in Indonesia. Yeah. But do we have even one Indonesian brand? Not one, right? So I think this is something we need to take serious as a country and as Indonesian people. We need to focus on not only the industry that come easy to us, because we have it in abundance, like natural resources, but the more difficult things that have to do with value creation that involves humans. I mean, people are paramount in this process. We need to go up in that direction.
Yes,
right?
definitely.
So otherwise we will be stuck, I think, in this middle income trap. And this is not only Indonesia. Many countries in ASEAN are in a similar position. Let's talk about Vietnam has now leapfrogged. They're now doing already their own EV, right?
Yes, correct.
And it's enormous. So I think that is the right way to go for us.
Yes, definitely. And I think this transformation from basic to more value added, is something that's very important. So you don't get trapped. And that goes across all different industries as well. So the next question that I would like to ask is more on the education system. So again, I think if we look at the ASEAN talent competitiveness or education, I mean, again, I think what Pa Ilham mentioned, different countries are at different stage, but there is also a paramount need to transform the education system, especially in certain countries. So again, maybe I'll start with Pa Eddie, given what you've known so far, especially, on the low skill and the middle income workforce. I mean, how do you think the education system in ASEAN can be transformed to meet the demands of this whole new economy and really foster that culture of continuous learning?
Yeah, I think we can't brute force it, right? I think that's for sure. I think, first of all, we have the tendency to kind of lump everything together. But when I look at it, we talk about workforce, especially preparing for the digital transformation that's going to come. There are three groups. The first one, it's working adult who are kind of tech savvy.
Yeah.
So there's certain different problem statement that we can do there, and that's actually just accounted for about 16%. 16% of the working adult felt that they have the basic digital skills required for them to perform in the new age. The other 84% or so, right, they don't think that they have the basic digital skills. So you have the second cohort of working adults
Yeah.
who require those basic training,
Yes.
right? And then there's a third group, and this is something else that I think all the developed countries are talking about. It's basically the primary kid students, right? All these digital native Indonesian, they are actually very savvy. But 65% of them will be working in jobs that do not yet exist,
Yes, that's correct.
right? So all these three different segments, I think the problems are very different and solutions required are very different. What comes down to it, there are only two places that people learn. One is in the academia, the other one is in the industry, right? The thing is right now, I don't think we can split it that way. With how fast innovation is happening, they have to merge together into one, right? So this partnership is important. And I think for academia, all right, there's still a lot of room for improvement for us, for sure, right? But I think aside from the academic and also for the industry partnership, we need to embrace technologies,
Yeah.
right? Basically in ad tech, AI, I was just checking out what SpaceX did in the States, right? Elon Musk, they had this education that is AI trained. They have replaced tutors. My 8-year-old son can learn about binary, the concept of binary counting in 8 minutes, right? So I think the teachers themselves, when you talk about education, the tutors themselves need to be upskilled. So before the implementation of AI on the students, the teachers themselves have to upskill first. So I think there are just those issues that we need to address.
Yeah, it's a holistic transformation, right? So, and I mean, very interesting what you said, right? Like the skill set that an elementary school student is teaching, learning now, it may be not relevant when they actually graduate from college. So I think that the rate of change and disruption is a lot faster.
Maybe I'd like to add too, right? I think what will play a very important role is the government here, right? Because government has to acknowledge that problem.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to education, you just need a holistic approach.
Yes, absolutely.
Without the right regulatory framework or even just priorities on what is right. And sometimes you get caught up with the developed world, what they are doing, and it's not practical for the current baseline that we have.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And maybe I'll also add, right, lastly, it's on talent mobility.
Yes.
Because I think the fastest way probably for Indonesia or ASEAN, because we have different countries at different state of development, we have the APT framework, right? ASEAN plus 3, there is China, and then there is Japan and South Korea, a lot of models that we can take over. Just having the talents being able to be mobile across these countries will be creating a lot of these magnetic forces to draw other talents to come on board.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of technological advancement that we can do here, I think.
Absolutely, and I think that's how you can get the new skills. But Jeff, you have additional thoughts.
Just one thing, I have to comment on this, the talent competitiveness index, right? Because when we look into the talent competitiveness index in ASEAN, this is also something that makes me stressful, right? Look at where Indonesia is, look at where some of the countries is. But I would like to give a different perspective. Why do we need to use that index? For example, in that index, there's a digital savviness, for example.
Yeah.
Is that relevant for us? Maybe not. I mean, I'm a VC, for example, right? And digital is close to what we do. But the successful companies are not digitally native, at least not for now. Maybe not in the near future as well. Technology is important, but there's a big enough market and industry on the conventional side. And for example, tourism. We are actually one of, not only Indonesia, but the whole ASEAN as a region. We are a very, very friendly and hospitable culture, right? So where that is in the talent competitiveness index, right? So of course we need to understand where we are in terms of the industrial evolution. Yeah, if we look into the ranking and then always compare ourselves on the metrics like digitally savvy, innovation and all that, yeah, we might not be ahead. But another way to think about it is maybe, is that the right kind of metrics that we need to look at? maybe that's not the most important industries or metrics for us. So things are actually not as bleak.
Sure, yeah. I think comparing to what industries you are in and thinking through what skill set do you need to progress those industries, I think is what Pak Ilham is also. I guess, Pak Ilham, maybe, would be good to get your thoughts in terms of the education system in ASEAN.
Yeah, I think what definitely needs to be improved is the gap between the academia and industry. I mean, traditionally, the people that go into academia, I'm not talking about universities only, but also the vocational training institutions, they have never worked in industry. So they teach whatever they have to teach to the curriculum very normatively, but they cannot talk from their own experience. And that is because of the lack of workplaces in the industry. The industry is not yet that strong. It's like a chicken and egg situation. I mean, can we get more people with industrial experience in the academia by and large if the industry itself is not that big, and not that strong?
Yeah.
So, but we need that kind of quality in order to give more relevant knowledge and experience to all the students.
Yes, absolutely.
And so that is, I think, one thing that needs to be vastly improved. And I think that can only be improved over time. It needs time. It's not something that comes overnight. The digital factor plays a role there. It cannot substitute everything, but many things can be, I think, taught from people that maybe are not originally from here, but they are somewhere else. They can be brought in. The language barrier is in the future not going to be that big anymore. I mean, there's technology to basically solve that as well. And I think, but we need to be aware about the fact that this is a major problem that we have. And that is also to be seen. If you talk education, then usually you talk also about research. So in Indonesia, the Ministry for Education does also research and technology.
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
And so the same people that actually do the research, and which happens a lot in university, there's no relevance to the industry in many cases. And so that shows the same phenomena. We need more, communication and collaboration between both sectors.
Yes, definitely. And I think that whole collaboration, industry and academia is very important.
Very important,
The professors and, the teachers. And Mo, you have would like to add as well.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit pro-Indonesian system, so I like to open out on the bigger ASEAN system. Education was all about, it's what you know, your skill factor. Do we have one common education standard in ASEAN? We don't. But if you want to go to Japan, or if you want to go to Korea, right, you have to pass these basic standard qualifications, whether you want to go to nursing, or whether you want to go into home care, or whether you want to go into engineering, or where you just basically get the standard for a work permit. So I think it's time now. Remember, I'm looking at on the macro view of ASEAN, I mean, when I first saw this title, Roadmap to ASEAN Talent, I was talking to Tony, and he asked me, I'm on the talent thing, and he said, hey, I'm just telling you, we're going to form an ASEAN band and show the talent of ASEAN, right? Like the girl group, like the K-pop group. So, but this is the thing. If you want to grow talent, what is that aspirational? What's that piece of paper that ASEAN can share amongst each other? We definitely know it's there. With this entry point exam systems for migrant workers in Japan and Korea, they take about 150, 200,000 of our young talent. But is it available here in ASEAN? It isn't. And it's so easy to do, as my three comrades have already said. So we should be looking at that. And I think this is a topic that we're going to be raising in the next ASEAN chairmanship under Laos. Please love your migrant workers. Please respect them. And I will say it again. They have the greatest talent. They leave their families to go overseas. Their talent is love and dedication, and we need to foster that for them as well.
I think that's a very important point, and I like the fact that you mentioned about the standard, right? Where we are seeing, and with more talent mobility, as Eddie mentioned, across ASEAN, can we also create a standard for certain profession that can cut across some different ASEAN countries?
And the thing is, different industries, different countries, there are different industries that stands out, right? So even on the industry side, different companies will stand out in Singapore, Indonesia, different types of companies.
Yes.
And when we talk about upskilling, we tend to always focus on that, but we don't think about what happens afterward. The absorption of the talent. Maybe if you upskill someone in Indonesia, right, or someone in Singapore, the application of that talent is more relevant on certain industries in different countries.
Yeah.
So we need to foster an environment that is conducive for that.
Absolutely. So, we are also seeing, like, if you look at the ASEAN Youth Survey, right? A lot of the youth, they want to become entrepreneurship and also work in MNC, which I think it's a good idea. So my question is actually, what role can entrepreneurship and startup culture play in nurturing and retaining, especially the youth talent? And so would like to give this question to Jeffrey.
Yeah, so I think for ASEAN, we are now in a very interesting times. We believe there's a lot of opportunities in the next decades. Indonesia, us in Indonesia, we always talk about Indonesia, the golden Indonesia 2045. The economy is expected to grow strong. And during this boom time, there will be a lot of opportunities, especially on SMEs as well. And when on the SMEs, we also see this, even during COVID, how many people become content creator and actually, make a decent income from those, it's not even maybe a company selling something, creating something, right? So there's enough and there's a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs to actually to participate in the future growth, not only in Indonesia and also ASEAN. And also when we look into what the government is doing, what the industries players are doing, the school or the education's organizations are doing, and also the non-profit. Everyone is actually going into more collaborative in the ASEAN. ASEAN BAC, for example, this forum, G20 last year. We see actually more connectivity, more discussions on how we can be more collaborative and have that connectivity between the countries. On schools, we also see that in Indonesia, we have quite a good relationship with the regional schools as well. Exchanges, bringing some of their graduates to come to Indonesia and vice versa to see what are the opportunities that they can do, internships, for example. And also non-profit. For example, on entrepreneurship, there's a non-profit called Endeavor, for example. And then Endeavor is actually present in multiple countries in Southeast Asia. And Endeavor, I just joined the organization as the board of Indonesia. And the discussion is also how we can have more connections. On the entrepreneurship and also business, network and connectivity is very important. And actually, there's a lot of good data points that we see that we can be encouraged because of more connectivities is being established now across the levels.
Yeah, and I think, digital actually can also help to foster that connectivity as well. But Mo, maybe you would like to add, from your ASEAN BAC council member, I mean, how do you see this? Like, how can ASEAN countries also nurture a lot more entrepreneur and cultivate a startup environment?
Entrepreneurship, doing business, making money is just gone over the top in terms of what you can do digitally. I mean, what really amazed me is the pace the talent that is already there to develop industry. I think Eddie just mentioned, or I think you mentioned about the Vietnam and their cars. VinFast, they've only done something like 13,000 cars. I've never heard of a Vietnamese car before that, and its market capitalization is worth more than $89 billion. So this is what is important. I believe. I mean, we worked for so many years on ASEAN economic something. AEC, community.
AEC.
Yeah, AEC. What happened there? Where's that promise that if I'm a qualified dentist here in Indonesia, that I can go and practice in Myanmar? What happened to all these things that you have to open your doors? We basically forgot AEC. So what is important is we need to foster entrepreneurship. You've got to identify a market. it's so easy to understand how big markets is, yeah? And one of the most important things that we still, again, I keep on going on about is our migrant workers, yeah? How do we train them to be better, yeah? I'll give you an instance, merchant shipping, where waiters work, sailors, yeah? There's about 600,000 ASEAN merchant sailors, yeah? But every country has their own maritime university.
Yes.
It's accepted on an international standard. I mean, more of these.
Yeah,
I mean, it's up to the developed countries, ASEAN countries, to think about this. Commonality. And we're talking about centrality, commonality. We don't even know how to talk to each other properly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So, maybe Pak Ilham, would you like to add,
Yeah, I wanted to add something about startups. I think if most of us think about startups, we think about digital, right? But I think, in fact, startups is a new company, right?
Yes.
New company, and it can be in any sector. And I think for countries like in ASEAN, there's a lot of gaps in the industrial landscape, which are usually filled by imports, or by companies that don't originate from ASEAN. So the value add that remains in ASEAN is not optimal. So I think any startup entrepreneur that wants to engage him or herself in ASEAN is actually filling a gap, because that gap has not been filled by the current industry. Nobody goes in that direction, so there's a gap. So they fill a gap that there is a need, or I think the chances at the moment to be successful are more than usual, because we live in a time of large technological disruption.
Yes.
We talk about digitalization, that would be one disruption, where some of the more established companies have difficulties with, because if you're established, if you're large, then you're not that agile, right? So you lose sometimes against startups, like we were just discussing, like the EV company from zero to hero. I mean, within no time, basically, right? The other, which is already not only in the horizon, but actually in the midst of it without knowing, is the decarbonization. Right? So what happens to that? So basically, these are two out of so many others, probably disruptive factors, where if you come as a startup and you want to start something, and you from the very beginning become something that is part of your DNA, you have a big chance of winning, actually.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And so this is a chance, I think, for us in ASEAN to strengthen and fill the holes in the industrial landscape.
Yeah, and I think that's the way to make the startup very successful, is to fulfill the holes that is not fulfilled yet by the formal sector. And I like also the fact that before Jeff mentioned about this whole social impact entrepreneurship, and we are seeing that the youth are also becoming a lot more purposeful. And now, we are seeing that business and social, they are a lot more intertwined. So things like decarbonization, on the green economy, I think those are the startup that, some of these youth have been actually been focusing also. So maybe, we don't have a lot of time left, but I would like to invite actually, Pak Ilham for closing remarks first, and then followed by the other panelists.
Okay, well, I think all countries in ASEAN have a similar goal. We want to basically become more advanced, more wealthy, more developed countries. In order to do that, I think everybody agrees the human capital is key, right? Human capital is there to deliver. It's also there to create. And I think the biggest challenge, and if you look at most studies that talk about ASEAN, is we need to be much more innovative. Right? Innovative in creating new products, new services, and for that you need people. Right? And so creating that talent needs to be created in a certain way. First of all, they need to be up to date regarding the knowledge. They need to be focused on specific sectors, I think, as well. And I think we haven't discussed this in this round. The role of STEM education, I think, is paramount. And STEM doesn't mean only focus on science, technology, engineering, and math, but actually it's also the way to learn. You have to learn product-based learning. So otherwise it doesn't stick in your head what technology actually means if you don't try to apply it hands-on, basically, and try to solve a little problem with the technology, then only then it really sticks in your mind. I think the trend in many countries, not only in ASEAN, around the world, that people are actually studying less and less technology and more going into non-tech disciplines is worrying, right? Because I think I'm an engineer, maybe I'm a little bit biased, But actually, I think it's very important to have enough people to be in a position to implement and to think about the solution in a technical way. And ASEAN cannot be an exception to that case. I think we have to create much more talent locally that goes into that direction.
Yeah, and I think this whole focus on STEM, complex problem
Exactly.
solving, and innovation
Exactly.
is very
Innovation
important.
is key, yes.
Yeah. So, I would like to actually ask all the panelists, so for just closing remarks. So, Mo, maybe if you have a closing remark, then Jeff and Pak Eddie, yes?
Yes, thank you for that. Just two things. So much talk about AI, so my daughter came up to me and says, Daddy, why are they calling it AI and not SI? And I said, what are you talking about? Because Daddy, you keep on saying AI is for stupid people to be intelligence. So she calls it stupid intelligence. That means that the level playing field for intellectual talent can start at a very, very age. And I'm so happy with it. And I'm so glad that my friends here are working in that field. Artificial intelligence makes people more clever. So that switches around is what is the talent that we really need to develop on a macro issue. So I want to retitle this seminar, not a roadmap to a hub of ASEAN talent, but a highway of ASEAN, a highway to a hub of ASEAN talent. But currently, our people, our migrant workers, have only got a rickshaw on this highway. We've all got to work hard, that at least the next thing, they're on the tuk-tuk and not on the rickshaw.
Yeah.
So I hope we can all work together. I hope each of you can go back home and
Yeah.
say, migrant workers, we shouldn't look down on them because they've been the pinnacle for ASEAN development. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Jeff,
Yeah, so from my side, from our side, we are early stage investors in Southeast Asia with investors globally. I think one thing that I would really want to highlight is where are we? Indonesia, ASEAN, where are we in the global stage now? There's a lot of enthusiasm, there's a lot of positivity despite what's happening globally. We have momentum, and we will have a very strong tailwind. And when we talk about talents, of course, there's certain data points that might discourage us or might pose a questions. Are we good enough to be able to compete or to be able to capture the potential and opportunities going forward? And I strongly believe that the answer is yes. There's a lot of good data points about what everyone is doing to help to prepare ASEAN talent to continue to grow. And then there's a lot of amazing industries that might not be disrupted by technology or AI yet in the next decades. That's also something that we learn as a venture capital. For example, just to give you a couple of interesting pointers, SaaS. In the US, SaaS is the bread and butter for venture capital. In Indonesia, or in ASEAN for that matter, SaaS is still very early.
yes, that's just starting. Yeah.
So we have time. We
Yeah.
have time to prepare ourselves, and don't underestimate of the younger generations.
Yeah.
How many? I mean, the younger generations. I still believe I'm pretty young, but the younger ones, they are very digitally savvy.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
we are, I think, number 2 or number 3 on TikTok. Indonesia is number 2
Yes,
on TikTok,
that's true.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
number 3 on YouTube, right? So
Yes.
we are digitally savvy. We believe that a lot of the younger generation will be able to pick up what's needed to be successful. But most importantly, let's make sure that we can be successful in our country, in our region, and the rest should follow.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point, like capitalizing also on the young. And in fact, well, my son is starting a podcast and he's 17 years old. He started actually when he was 16. So again, definitely I think there's a lot of changes that we can look at the young generation, and we have to capitalize on that. But I also like the fact that you said it has to be a playbook that's also tailored to the different countries. Pak Eddie,
I'll
your
keep it
closing
brief,
remark.
like 90 seconds. So I think we should focus on depth rather than breadth. Because I feel that there are multitudes of partnerships that we can do all across the world with different organizations and such, but we should focus on the few that will actually drive the outcome.
Yeah.
I mean, as a startup, right, we breathe and live the startup life on a daily basis. I think I would like to kind of close this by sharing we need to have commonality in ASEAN values as well when it comes to human capital, right? So there's one term that I use in my company. I call it SIFAT, S-I-F-A-T, right? So it means behavior,
Yeah.
right? So S stands for self-awareness, right? So we need to be self-aware in this kind of environment. You have to be able to grow. Self-awareness is number one. Then next is intellectual curiosity. That has to be taught sometimes.
Yes.
People are not accustomed to that, right? You have to be intellectually curious. And the F stands for fast learning capability.
Yes.
That's something that we need to
Yes.
develop over time. And then adaptability with changes that happens all the time. And lastly, on teamwork. So maybe I'll close it with that. And if we have that commonality in terms of the human capital all across ASEAN, we should be set up for something great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good closing remark. So would like to thank all the great panelists on the stage, and hope it's productive for all of you as well. Thank you.
Please give another big round of applause for this session.